The map was solid red, and the board showed one crew left to send. At 11 on July 18th, Boise turned the national dial to 5, while Oregon already burned with 23 large fires. Minnesota had 5 more on the same board. 5 is not a grade on any chart. It is an empty shelf with nothing left to spare. There are no spare crews, no spare engines, and no spare helicopters when the dial hits 5. You know fire season is bad. You do not know why the next fire waits in line. Picture the room in Boise where 4 walls of maps and a bank of radios track every fire. Around one table sits the National Multi-Agency Coordinating Group, with a chair for every major fire agency. Forest Service sits beside Bureau of Land Management, Park Service, Fish and Wildlife, Bureau of Indian Affairs, and state foresters. When they vote to move the preparedness level, every dispatch center in the country feels the shift the same hour. Level 1 means local crews handle new starts without help. Level 3 means help is coming from nearby regions. Level 5 means the shelf is bare across the nation. The formal language is flat and cold. National resources are heavily committed and additional measures are taken to support geographic areas. Full commitment is ongoing, which means no one is waiting in reserve. If a new fire starts now, it does not get a crew. It gets a number and a place in line. On that July day, new fires started every hour and the line only grew longer. That is what PL5 does, and the country had not felt it this early in 10 years. Only 2 earlier dates had gone to 5 sooner, June 21, 2002 and July 1, 2008. Everyone in the room knew the next dry lightning would test the line. By June 30th, the year had already logged 33,946 fires. Those fires had burned 1,789,582 acres. Compare that to the 10-year average of 26,406 fires, and just over 2 million acres for the same date. More fires than average, fewer acres than average. On paper it looked almost normal. Then July snapped the pattern with 95 new starts in a single day, and 44 large fires burning without containment. 20 complex teams were already committed with 1 short team stuck in Alberta, and 2 MFF's tankers already flying. The crew board told a harder truth behind the team count. 73 hotshot crews were committed, and only 1 Type 1 crew remained free to move. 132 Type 2 IA crews were committed and only 2 were free. Picture a store with 74 registers and 73 already open. 1 left. The next fires saw that line and kept coming through the last week of July on 2 fronts that never belonged together. Desert in the southwest and cold lakes in Minnesota burned at once. Take Oregon on the morning of August 9th, when the national list showed 94 large fires burning across America. Oregon held 23 of those fires. Washington held 20, Montana 10, Idaho 9. 1 in 4 large fires in the country was in Oregon that morning. The total acres burning in all active fires that day was 3,629,723. That is a city of smoke larger than Yellowstone. In the days before, the Northwest region had fought more than 45 large fires that together burned over 1.6 million acres. 31 of those fires were in Oregon alone. One of them was Cram, which sat at 77,000 acres on July 17th with 0 containment and extreme behavior in timber. Families loaded cars and left while crews tried to hold line on a ridge they could not see through smoke. 13 days later, on August 7th, Cram was still the largest fire in the country. The Oregon Department of Forestry put the statewide toll at more than 1 million acres with 34 large fires active at once. 1 million acres is 1,500 square miles, a square 40 miles on each side, all ash and snag. On the same screen that listed Oregon, 5 fires burned in Minnesota, each over 1,000 acres in a place that usually fights water. You think you have the answer now because hot and dry always burns. It did burn, and the drought map explains why many people stop there. On July 29th, the monitor showed 45% of the lower 48 in moderate drought or worse. 92% was dry if you include abnormally dry. The northern plains cracked first, and northern Minnesota went from damp to parched in weeks. Monitors called it rapid drought development, a fast shift that leaves grass ready to carry fire. Then came dry lightning that walks across the boundary waters and drops fire like matches. 17 fires started at once in the Superior National Forest from that one burst. Heat followed at 95 to 102 degrees with humidity at 5 to 15% and winds gusting to 30 miles per hour. The outlook warned of above normal significant fire potential through August and September for most of the Northwest, Hawaii, California, Nevada, and New England. Most of the forested West was above normal, not just one valley, so the fires grew because weather told them to, and that answer feels complete until you look at crews. It is not complete. Weather starts fires, but crews decide whether they stay small, and that difference is the story the map hides. The national system works like a queue, where Boise sends a team if it has one, and the request waits if it does not. The formal label for a full queue is written as national resources are heavily committed and additional measures are taken. That is level 5, and it means the national shelf is empty and every geographic area is holding its last crews. That hold line has a name you rarely hear outside dispatch, and the name is drawdown. Drawdown is the number of crews, engines, and overhead a region keeps at home so it can handle its own next fire. In July, every region hit that line at the same time, which is why the country felt empty even where it looked wet. The Northwest begged for help with 31 fires, while the Great Basin had 4 teams committed and 2 more fires at zero containment. Northern California carried 16,400 acres on one fire and another fire at 0%. Alaska had 6 fires no one could reach, while Minnesota, which usually sends help west, asked for help itself. The math was simple and brutal on the board. 73 hotshot crews were committed with 1 free to move, and 132 Type 2 IA crews were committed with 2 free. 20 complex teams were committed with 8, showing no new assignment and only 6 on rotation for the next week. Pending requests sat at 145 overhead, 14 engines, and 14 helicopters. No Type 1 or Type 2 crews existed on the board to fill them. When the tank is empty, states keep crews home, and the mutual aid system that lets California help Oregon stalled that week. 17 new starts hit the Great Basin in one day, while 5 regions sat at level 3 and 1 sat at level 4. A jet of hotshots was due back from Alaska tomorrow, yet the note said Alaska crews would be unavailable to travel south for a while. That is logistics, not weather, and 2 wet states can still have no one to send because the travelers are already gone. You think the fix is simple. Just hire more people and pay more money and call the military. Everyone thinks that at first, and everyone learns why it fails in July. A hotshot crew is not a temp job you fill in a week. They train for months, carry a red card, carry 40 pounds, and dig line for 16 hours in smoke. You cannot print them when Cram goes to zero containment. Pay helps, but the Southwest still listed 8 hotshot crews as unavailable because their seasonal positions had expired. They existed on a roster but not on a fire, and the calendar ended them before the fire did. The military can help, but they need the same card, the same training, the same bosses, and the same overhead to run them safely. In 2025, no request for help to Canada could be filled because both countries were at level 5 together. Canada showed 715 active fires and 15.5 million acres burning, with over 500 people from out of country already there. Australia and New Zealand had several hundred people in Canada and told the United States they might have little capacity left to send south. A shadow team was discussed and postponed to next year, which means it did not exist this July. 200 soldiers once helped on the Umpqua North complex for 30 days in 2017. That lever is not a standing army for every July. A skeptic will tell you the acreage was not even that bad in 2025, and on acres alone they are right. On August 9th, the country showed 42,962 fires and 3,604,307 acres. A year earlier, on the same date, it showed 29,194 fires. It also showed 5,097,739 acres. In 2022, the same date showed 40,775 fires and 5,883,000 acres. The 10-year average for this point in the season is higher than 2025 on both counts. The final year still closed just over 5 million acres against averages near 7 million. That lets someone say it was not so bad and be right on a spreadsheet. It is false in a dispatch center where crews count differently than acres. In 2017, the country hit level 5 on August 10th and stayed there 40 days to September 18th. This year, it hit level 5 on July 18th, the earliest in 10 years. Only June 21, 2002 and July 1, 2008 went earlier. The veteran who called Level 5 fire DEFCON was not counting acres. He was counting how many fires wait with no one to send in July. Early matters more than big when the next month still has above normal risk. Behind the early Level 5 is a quieter cut that has nothing to do with weather. People, and the way we count them, make the line longer than acres ever will. The federal government employs thousands of wildland firefighters, but the exact count shifts by season, agency, and contract, and is hard to pin down. This year, the Forest Service said by the end of July it had 11,364 firefighters on board. That was above its goal for 2025. On paper, that looks fully staffed. On the ground, the story was different, with thousands of vacancies still showing as peak season approached. ProPublica reported those vacancies while the top Democrat on a House committee demanded the Agriculture Secretary explain the gap between public numbers and internal boards. An employee at a park in Colorado said they were severely understaffed during the last administration, and it is worse now than ever. Colorado preparedness planners warned that slowed hiring could delay response, cut available crews, and push more work onto already stretched state and local units. You saw the gap on the board in more than hotshots. Overhead sat at 79 and 145 waiting, engines 11 short, helicopters 1 short. Caterers showed 19 committed with 6 left, showers 34 committed, and even the people who feed crews were nearly out. Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon pressed the point that 8 hotshot crews in the Southwest were listed as unavailable because seasonal positions had expired. He asked how the agency would cover Oregon's catastrophic fires with that hole. The answer on paper did not match the line on the ground. A crew boss in Oregon said her team went hungry for days and ran short of medical supplies. They had to scrounge for chainsaw fuel after support staff quit. Drought did not just make flame, it made fuel ready weeks early and kept it ready. Boise calls one measure energy release component, a number for how hot a fire can burn when it finds that fuel. In the Northwest and northern operations, that number sat in the high 90th percentile, worse than 99 years in 100. Grasses below 4,500 feet in the Great Basin were cured, a polite word for dead and dry enough to carry fire fast. Timber that usually holds moisture was ready to burn like paper, and any ignition could run. The briefing wrote it plain that large fires in the northern Rockies would persist and the Northwest would stay in the high 90th percentile. When fuel is that ready, a single dry lightning burst can make 17 fires that do not stay small for long. At a week of 100-degree heat, a fire goes from 1/10 of an acre to 55,000 before a crew can hike in. In the Superior National Forest, that hike is not a road, it is a canoe, a portage, and a bog that engines cannot cross. Step out of the charts and go to the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness in late July. 3.9 million acres of lakes and pine that usually sound like paddles and loons smelled like smoke that week. Rangers flew and paddled to warn people that the woods they were camping in were closing for the first time in 45 years. They could not drive to them because the only way in is water, and the only way out is water. 17 fires burned at once under the canopy, some at 30,000 acres, some at 17, some at 7, some at 6. Bear Trap ran to 30,022 acres near Ely with 40% contained. Thumb reached 17,634, Sioux 7,041, Wolfpack 6,239. Camp added 4,359. All lightning struck and all in timber that was ready. A canoe in smoke looks smaller than you think, and you hear a plane you cannot see before you smell a fire miles away. Rangers knocked on tents one group at a time and asked people to leave a place built for water because fire had taken the trails. The forest closed for the 3rd time in its history. It was not one fire getting big, but 17 at once with no one to watch them all. You can argue weather will turn, and sometimes it does, with moisture moving into southern operations in early August. On one day, the center counted more than 90 new starts, yet most stayed small because initial attack still works. That is the job, and the vast majority of wildfires are caught within 24 hours and never make the large fire list. Someone will catch a fire at 1/10 of an acre tomorrow, and you will never hear its name. The skeptic who says we manage most fires is right about that part, and that truth hides the trap of averages. When fuel sits in the 90th percentile and wind finds it, the one that gets away does not stay average. It runs, and the outlook kept above normal potential for the Northwest through September until rains come. Not when they might come. Rains in the Northwest in late August are not a plan, they are a hope that may not arrive. The Southwest briefing was blunter, with numerous dispatch areas at full operational level and most or all teams in use. Aviation was called critical. Higher level initial attack was called unsuccessful, and that sentence means fires stack when teams do not. Add it up, and the country sat at level 5 with 44 large fires uncontained and 20 teams assigned. Pending requests showed 145 overhead, 14 engines, and 14 helicopters. No Type 1 or Type 2 crews existed on the board to fill them. 8 teams showed no new assignment, and 6 were on rotation later that week, which looked like relief until you read the notes. Madre at 80,779 acres and 97% contained was going back to local control. Marble and Forsyth did the same that week. That was not spare capacity. It was exhausted teams rotating out after weeks on the line. The Great Basin had tapped prepositioned resources, and the Northwest reported trouble filling middle management. Cram stayed in unified command because one team could not handle it alone. Jets had brought hotshots back from Alaska one day, yet the next note said Alaska crews would be unavailable to travel south for a while. The branch chief who briefed the national group before the vote said they had seen significant activity in multiple areas. He said high potential for more large fires existed before they ever raised the level. That potential arrived as 17 Minnesota fires and 20 Oregon fires and 40+ nationwide, with no one left to send. The other number that shows the tank is empty is how help moves from next door when the system is healthy. In a normal July, the system moves crews like a bank moves cash. If the Northwest needs help, the Northern Rockies or California sends engines. If the Southwest is quiet, its crews go north, and the center tracks that as resources assigned out of area. In 2025, that ledger stalled, and the notes from July 17th said it plain. Northeast and Midwest states were still sending resources west, but Alaska crews would be unavailable to travel south for a while. Rocky Mountain was out of internal teams until August 4th, while National Surge Packages 1 and 2 stayed in southern operations. Surge Package 3 was still completing a crew swap assigned to Cram, so the reserve was not coming that week. When a geographic area hits its hold line, its boss must say no, because Boise does not order a state to empty its own hills. It asks, and the answer in late July across much of the West was no. That is not selfish, it is drawdown, and when every state does it at once, the national queue that should balance the country locks. 44 fires, 20 teams, 145 overhead waiting. The only thing left to watch was weather and hope. The next burst misses you. Hope is not a resource type on the board, and it does not cut line. Where does that leave August and September when predictive services do not gamble and instead map what is ready to burn? Fuels are ready, weather is ready, and teams are not, with the outlook keeping above normal potential for the Northwest through September until rains come. Rains in the Northwest in late August are not a plan, they are a hope, and hope has no crew number. The national report for the year will likely close with more fires than the 5 and 10-year averages. It will show near 77,000 fires, against averages near 61,000. Acres will be under average by more than 2 million, which will let someone say it was not so bad on a spreadsheet. That spreadsheet will be true, and the dispatch center will still be false, because strain is not measured in acres. Strain is measured in nights a crew sleeps in a parking lot waiting for a helicopter that is already assigned. It is measured in rangers knocking on tents in smoke. It is measured in a state forester keeping 2 crews home because the next dry lightning is forecast for his own hills. The spokesperson who told weather reporters this was the earliest level 5 in 10 years was not warning about one fire. Stanton Florea said it was the earliest, and he was warning about time. When you hit 5 in mid-July, you have 60 to 69 days before history says you come down, if the last decades hold. In 2021, it was 69 days from July 14th to September 20th. In 2017, it was 40 days from August 10th to September 18th. Every day on 5 is a day a new start can wait. Every day you wait, a small fire gets its chance to become the one you will name. The system did not fail because people did not try. It failed because there were not enough people to try in enough places at once. You will hear acres and you will hear containment. Listen for the number they do not put on the news. How many crews are left? When that number is 1, the next fire decides what burns. and the question that stays open as August turns is simple. If we hit the ceiling in mid-July with no crews left, what happens when the next dry lightning finds cured grass?